Hello and welcome to Transform Tuesday. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Products and Services here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Sarah Mitchell, who's in charge of our documentation department. Today we're going to be going over a really cool feature called canned images. It's been in the product for a little while, but I don't think I've ever done a webinar on it, and I wanted to show it off to you because it is really neat. We're also going to be finishing up our discussion on OnDevice Assets because it's actually quite related to canned images. And I'm here, of course, also to take any questions that you may have. If you do have them, you can type them into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel, or you can send them via email to tfservice, as in transform service, at alphasoftware.com. So as I'm just to get started, Sarah, if you could let me know whether or not you could see my screen and whether or not my voice is coming through.
Everything can be seen and heard very clearly today.
Excellent. That's terrific. All right. So let me jump down to our presentation, which I think is right about here. Yes. Today we're talking about canned images. So now a canned image, or at least as we define it here in Transform, is an image that is preloaded onto the mobile device. And when a form is being filled out, that image is used by someone so that they can mark up on it. And then here's an example right here, car damage inspector. So, maybe if you brought your car into an auto shop or an insurance adjuster showed up and your car was sideswiped, they might take an image like this, where they might ask you to fill it out and actually, sort of mark up where the damage has occurred on the car. Now, that's just one example. You could have a picture of a human body, for example, if you had a chain of physiotherapist offices. You could do it for planograms for stores to make sure that things are merchandised properly. You could do it for schematics. You could do it for blueprints. And there's just a whole range of really good reasons why you might want to use a canned image that you can mark up in your form. So today we're going to show you how to do that. And to do that, we're going to actually have to follow up a little bit on last week's conversation, which had to do with on-device assets. And today we're going to be talking about, instead of on-device assets, it's related, but on-device policies. So let me show you where that is. I'm going to go into my Transform account here. And here I am in Transform Central at the Home tab, and I'm down here on the Define on-device assets section. Now, last week I gave you an example where we had created an image in our actually I played a recording, but we did the same thing where we took an image, put it up on Amazon S3, and loaded it onto the device. Here, let me just do a quick refresher of that. In order to get a file, like an image file or a manual or a video, into Transform, you first have to put it up on a server where Transform can get it. It then downloads that, and that becomes what we call an on-device asset. So an on-device asset could be an image, it could be a video, it could be a PDF, could be a database. Today it's going to be an image because we're talking about canned images. So the way that we got that up there was we used Alpha Anywhere, which is a companion product to Alpha Transform and is available, the Community Edition, free of charge without restrictions for your use with Transform, because it has these built-in helper tools. And one of these helper tools, I'm going to close this up, is called the On-Device Data Builder for PhoneGap applications. So I'm going to open that up, and I have an example ready to go that I'm going to load, called the car example. And all this is to list of all of the things that I would like to put onto the mobile device. And in this case, I've only chosen one thing, and it's this image. And to add a new thing, I could have clicked Add. But let's click Edit to show you how it's defined. I said I want to upload a file. I said I want to upload this JPEG in particular. I want to zip it. I don't really have to in this case. It's small, but you may as well. And I want the target folder where it's going to be put in on the device. It's almost like the device got its own little hard drive in it, where it's going to have a target folder called images. So that's where I want to find it later on when I need to access it in Transform. Once I had done that, I clicked this button called Generate the Manifest Files, and then I uploaded these manifest files to S3, and we went over how to do that last week as well. We also talked about the manifest file itself once it's created, and how you could just take it and paste it over into your account like we've done here. And so here we've told it, I'd like to please go to my Amazon S3 bucket, pick up this file, and unzip it, and put it in a place called images. Now you'd think that that's all you would have to do to get an image or to get the stuff on your phone, but there is in fact one more thing. You need to define what is called a policy. So let's go back to policies in PowerPoint, and I'll talk about what they are and what they're for. So a policy here is a JSON definition. It's a string which tells Transform when it should download the assets, when it should download these files to your phone, when it should delete the assets from your phone, and also how to reference those assets when you're referring them to HTML in your form design or in your TPL commands. So let's pop over here to, actually, when your form design, let's forget I said TPL because it's a little bit different in TPL. We'll talk about that later. So let's take a look at what one looks like. This is a policy. And you know what? I'm going to actually grab this because I think if you don't have your own policy, this could be a great starting point for you. I'm just going to put this here in the chat window. Oh, and actually, looking at the chat window, it looks like Sarah has already pasted in a sample policy. Thanks, you're ahead of me. So let's talk about how a policy file works. So this is the policy file, and it's divided into 3 sections. Section 1 is download. When should I take the assets and put them on the device? Then there's delete. When should I get rid of the assets because I might not need them anymore? And then there's one called path prefixes. This one's a little different than the other 2. What it says is, how can I refer to these in HTML on my form design? Let's first start with, oops, I'm going to break that. Let's first start with the download and delete. Then I'll explain path prefixes in a minute. So for download, you have 2 times which the assets can be downloaded. It can happen when they first log in, or it can happen if they go to the menu on the app and the mobile device and say that they want to refresh their on-device assets. It's one of the menu choices in the hamburger menu. So the first thing, so those are the 2 places. So let's take a look at the menu one first, the on-demand one first. There are a couple of parameters here which are set. Check prompt basically says, am I even going to allow the user to do this themselves? Should I give them an option of doing on-device refresh when they go to that menu? So you want to set that to true to give them that ability. The next thing you want to do is say, okay, then what, should I make sure that they confirm before I go ahead and do that and say confirm prompt equals true? And then at the end of it, do I want to let them know that it succeeded, and we'll set that to true as well. So the same deal is happening here with login. You could set it so every time you log in, it should ask you if you want to refresh. It should confirm your choice, and then it should let you know whether or not it's the case. Obviously, you could set these to false, not true as well, but we're doing them all as true here. For delete, it's just basically on demand or on logout are really the only cases, and also on new account. What that means is if you have 2 or more Transform accounts and you've signed out of one on your phone and you're signing it into another one, then that might prompt it to delete the assets that you don't need anymore. Now let's talk about this last one, this oddball, path prefixes. Path prefixes are meant so that you can refer to your images and your files in your Transform form definitions. And the way you do that is by creating a prefix. Think of it as an alias, I guess, would be a better way of phrasing it. So here we say, I have an alias, or I want to create an alias called images. And whenever I see the word images, I want you to go to the root of the file system for my app, then look in a subfolder called images. And then that's where you'll find the asset that I'm looking for. So that is the path prefix, or I could say the path alias would be another way of saying it. So, okay, so what does that even mean? Well, let me show you. In the next example, here is a image tag. And let's see, if you put this into Transform, this would work because you're going to say image, the source is images dot, and what Transform knows to do is, images dot, that's a prefix. I'm going to go back over here and see where that's supposed to be. Aha, it's supposed to be in this location. And then the name of my file and the extension. So if you were to put that in and you had that file in the images folder, then that would display properly. So I just wanted to go over that again. I do believe that's covered in the Alpha Anywhere user's guide. If you need a copy of the user's guide, send an email to tfservice@alphasoftware.com. I'm also positive it's in the documentation here that Sarah just posted. So we're good. All right, so that was kind of the boring part of today's presentation. Let's go into the more interesting parts. Now that we have those assets on our phone, how do we actually use them in a transform form? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go into the designer, and here you'll see I have created a form called an image. Not a great name, I admit it. And it just has two commands. One is the heading, which car damage inspector. The other is this field that we want to have the canned image in. And so a canned image field is a photo field. First of all, you should know that. So if you were to add one, you'd click add new commands and you'd go down and you would choose photo here from this list. Once you've selected that, then you have some options. So here's the field type, blah, 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 field name. You could start with photo resolution. That doesn't really make much difference for a canned image. I don't know, I choose to set mine to large. Allow drawing, yes, because that's the whole point of the canned image, so that you could sketch on top of it. Start with a zoomed drawing or start unzoomed. I find the zoomed drawing is helpful, and this is the default, and I would suggest using that. You could choose the default pen color. I think red is great because it's a great contrast against black, and you could choose the pen thickness. Now the user can choose that themselves once they're in the app, not a big deal. Now here's the canned images line here. What you do, if you click on this in this box, it's going to open up another box. And here I've told it where I wanted to have, here I told it that I wanted to use a canned image, and I told it what I wanted to use as my default canned image. Right? Now there might be a scenario in which, you know, it's not always going to be the same one. You might have 10 different canned images that you want to use. You want to select one that's closer to the thing that you're actually trying to describe. You may choose not to do a default, and instead what you would do is you would build a list of the canned images here. Now, to tell it which one it is, I just simply tell it the image path slash and then the file name. Now notice we don't have to bother with all that path alias or path prefix stuff I was telling you about a moment ago. Those are only used in HTML commands. When you're working here in these canned images, you can use that / to refer to it. So I know that that image that I created is this name and it's in this folder, and that's where I put it. Now, if I wanted to give the user the ability to select from a whole bunch of different images, I could put them here, and I can do them either by referring them strictly to their file name so that the user will see a bunch of file names in the list, or for a little bit of a neater, sort of more elegant appearance, you can put in a title before that file name. So what they'll see is car, but car will translate into images / stock / blah, 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 this thing here, right? Okay, so with that all set, I went ahead and I saved and I published. Let me show you what that looks like. Let me open up and mirror my phone. Okay, and I'm gonna go here and let's back up. I'm gonna add a blank form. And let's refresh from server just to make sure we have the latest copy. And there's the one I created, the an image one. And there I've got my here. Now I was allowed, if you could see here, it says tap to mark up the diagram. I'm allowed to set that because I put that message in here as well. If you leave it blank, I think it says something like click to insert image, but that doesn't make sense for a canned image. So I put in my own text. So now I'm going to tap to mark up the diagram. There's the diagram right there. Then I just tap the pen button at the bottom right. And up here, I can move this box around to decide where I'm going to go. So let's imagine, I don't know, someone sideswiped my car, and we'll use that color red, and maybe they got my mirror and scraped the side of the car and, I don't know, hurt one of my rims, something like that. So now that's saved, and now that becomes part of the data. And that's all there is to it. So while the feature does take a little bit of learning to learn how to get the assets up onto S3 and the manifest file generated and the field setup, and this is also key, the policy to actually download the asset in place. We are planning on making that process a bit easier. Still, once you learn how to do it, you could probably do it in about 10 minutes or so. But the feature itself for your end user, fortunately, is actually really quite easy to use, and I encourage you to try it out. So do we have any questions? Let's take a look. Not at the moment. Good. Maybe I over-explained. We'll see. Well, if not, and if you do have further questions, go ahead and send them to tfservice@alphasoftware.com. Thank you very much for everyone here who attended. And thank you very much, Sarah, for providing the documentation links. We hope to see you in our next Transform Tuesday. Stay well. Bye-bye.